I've got a riddle.
Brace yourselves.
What follows us all day long but hides?
Our shadow.
And Chris is
I shall be doing the talking from now on.
The movie begins in a dark and spooky forest where tall trees block a lot of the sunlight, making it feel eerie and mysterious. Only a few beams of light manage to peek through the thick branches. Suddenly, we see a dirty hand clutching a tree, and then we spot a tired teenage boy wearing a yellow hoodie, sprinting through the forest. After running for a little while, he collapses onto the ground, breathing heavily and holding onto the muddy earth. Next, we switch scenes to a bright red bus that rolls along a lonely road surrounded by tall trees from the forest. Inside the bus, a teenage boy named Nolan, who is wearing a gray hoodie and listening to music through his earphones, gazes out the window. Close by, a teenage girl named Bess is busy drawing in her sketch pad. Nolan sneaks a glance at her and smiles, clearly showing that he has a crush on her. Meanwhile, the bus driver talks about an exciting lunar eclipse that is coming up. He lowers the radio volume and asks the teens if they are planning to watch it. Carl, a chubby boy sitting nearby, mentions that he has already seen a video about it on YouTube. Queenie, the girl next to him, says she is going to watch it with her dad. They start to bicker a little before they quiet down. In the back of the bus, Reggie, a boy with a nose ring, is sitting alone. He crushes an empty soda can and throws it at Nolan, hitting him right on the head. Nolan turns around and sees Reggie giving him a rude gesture. He responds to Reggie, but then turns back to find Bess smiling at him. The boys start to mess around for a bit, and when things settle down, Joseph, the bus driver, asks Bess if she plans to watch the eclipse. Bess isn't sure, and Carl teases both Nolan and Bess, which makes Queenie move to a different seat in annoyance. The radio keeps talking about the eclipse, saying it will be long and fascinating. Carl stands up and reads a riddle from his phone, but Joseph quickly figures it out, which disappoints Carl. Reggie laughs at Carl for being outsmarted. Then Joseph shares a riddle that he claims they won't be able to find online. The teens listen carefully, but no one can solve it. The riddle involved 7 letters and is a much-needed virtue. However, the kids have no idea what the answer could be. Carl teases Queenie for not getting it right and calls her IQ. Joseph watches them through the rearview mirror, chuckling at their confused expressions. The bus takes a turn onto a dark, narrow road. Suddenly, a fallen tree blocks their path, so Joseph has to back up and choose a smaller, hidden road instead. They find themselves on an empty, foggy road, and the teens start to feel scared since the fog makes it hard to see anything. The bus stops again when they come across a deer lying in the middle of the road. Joseph gets off the bus to move the deer and tells the teens to stay inside. They think about helping him but decide not to. Joseph drags the deer into the trees but then stops, sensing something strange. Inside the bus, the teens start to joke around. Carl begins a funny story but gets cut off when Joseph comes back onto the bus with a gun pointed at his head. The teens gasp in fear as a scruffy man enters the bus right behind Joseph. The man gives them a scary greeting while still aiming the gun at Joseph. He orders everyone to sit down, and Joseph tries to calm the teens, saying that the man won't hurt them. The man shoves Joseph and demands he drive without saying another word. The teens sit quietly, except for Reggie, who stubbornly remains standing for a moment before sitting down. The man moves Queenie to a different seat and tells Joseph to start driving. As the bus doors close, Carl remembers a lunch he had with his dad, Chris, not too long ago. During that lunch, Carl had told Chris a wild story about saving a girl from bullies, and Chris pretended to believe him. He then showed Carl a news article about a dangerous serial killer who escaped from prison, called a tongue-eating lunatic who targets teenagers. Chris joked that Carl could handle the killer just like he handled the bullies at school. Back in the present moment, Carl realizes that the gunman is actually the escaped convict. As the day starts to turn into evening, the bus keeps driving. The gunman, named Pedro, tells everyone to throw their phones out the windows so they can't call for help. Everyone follows his orders, except for Reggie, who glares at Pedro. Joseph tries to persuade Reggie to listen, but Pedro just laughs at him. Pedro walks over to Reggie and presses the gun against his head, forcing him to give up his phone. He complains about teenagers acting like zombies and tells them to sit back and enjoy the ride while Joseph continues to drive. The bus then enters a dark tunnel, but suddenly it breaks down. Joseph swears under his breath, and Pedro demands to know what's wrong. Joseph tries to explain, but Pedro presses the gun to his head and demands that he fix it. Joseph turns the key in the ignition, but the engine won't start. Pedro gets furious and grabs Queenie, pressing the gun to her head and threatening her if Joseph doesn't get the bus working again. Joseph begs Pedro to calm down, but Pedro insists he must get out and fix it. He warns Joseph and the teens not to try anything funny and shoves Queenie out of the bus. Joseph opens a compartment under the bus, while Pedro and Queenie watch closely. Inside the bus, the teens feel scared. Carl worries that Pedro might kill them and suggests they need to find a way to disarm him to survive. However, Carl and Reggie decide that trying to take down Pedro now would be too dangerous. Joseph struggles to figure out why the engine won't start. Suddenly, the lights go out, and the tunnel becomes pitch black. The only light comes from inside the bus, and everyone is filled with fear. A strange noise echoes in the darkness. Joseph shines his flashlight ahead but sees nothing. Pedro, the man with the gun, tells Joseph to investigate the noise. Joseph, feeling nervous, moves forward with the flashlight. As Joseph steps into the darkness, Pedro pushes Queenie back onto the bus. The teenagers watch Joseph through the windshield. Suddenly, a large hooded figure appears and grabs Joseph. He screams, sending the other teens into a panic. Pedro yells at them to stay quiet. Now feeling very angry, Pedro realizes that the bus key is missing. He curses and orders Carl to retrieve the key from Joseph's body. Carl is too frightened to move, so Nolan offers to go instead. At the same time, Bess runs out of the bus. Pedro warns Nolan to stay back while Bess shakily reaches into Joseph's pocket to grab the key. When she sees Joseph's lifeless face, she starts to cry but quickly distracts herself with another noise. Pedro takes the key and tells Reggie to start the bus. Reggie hesitates, and Pedro threatens to shoot him if he doesn't comply. Annoyed, Reggie grabs the key and tries to start the bus, but it doesn't work. Pedro threatens that he will start with Queenie if Reggie can't get the bus running. Reggie stands up and tells Pedro to stop calling Queenie names, which distracts Pedro just long enough for Nolan to push him. Reggie manages to take the gun, but Pedro grabs it back and starts shouting at the creature outside. A loud bang from outside shocks everyone. The bus shakes, and the teens catch a glimpse of the creature through the windows. It looks like nothing they have ever seen before. They scream and hide between the seats as the creature roars and growls, trying to figure out how they can escape this terrifying situation. Reggie heads to his usual spot at the back of the bus while the radio makes crackling sounds. He starts to feel dizzy and presses his face against the back window before he collapses. Suddenly, they hear the familiar croaking noise of the creature returning. The bus shakes violently as the creature tries to pry open the door. Bess quickly grabs a flashlight and holds it up, which seems to keep the creature at bay just long enough for everyone to escape through another door. They find a bunker, and after exploring for a while, discover a room that has a floor plan of a military fort. Nolan and Bess decide to search for the control tower so they can turn on the lights. During this time, Reggie shares that his father is in prison, and Nolan and Bess bond over this moment. While they are searching, Nolan and Bess come across a big flashlight. Nolan explains that someone must have tried to kill the creature before. They also find a skeleton in a cave, which shows that the plan didn't work out. Meanwhile, Reggie and Queenie get separated. Reggie finds Queenie, who is being attacked by the creature. He bravely tries to scare the creature away with the flashlight, but it gets knocked out of his hands. Finally, Nolan and Bess locate the main power switch. As they try to turn it on, Carl helps get Queenie to safety. They realize that Reggie is in danger and rush back to help him. Reggie is struggling under the creature, which is dripping blood onto him. As his friends try to save him, Reggie whimpers, unable to hold off the creature for much longer. Just in time, Bess and Nolan manage to flip the large switch, flooding the tunnel with bright light. The creature screeches and quickly flies away from Reggie, disappearing into the darkness. Carl breathes a sigh of relief, happy that they fixed the generator just in time. In the control room, Nolan and Bess find a small staircase that leads down. They discover a cave filled with old newspapers and pictures of the creature that killed Joseph. Books and journals also show that someone was obsessed with the creature. Nolan also finds a Polaroid picture of a little girl and starts to piece together the story. They hurry back to their friends but stop in a hallway when they see a shadow moving toward them. Reggie and the others appear around the corner, and Nolan and Bess feel relieved to see them. However, they quickly notice that Queenie is hurt and rush over to help her. Carl tries to explain what happened, but no one can understand him. Nolan calms him down while Bess examines Queenie's injury, which is a deep, bloody cut.
Calm down.
Reggie blames himself for leaving her alone and insists they need to leave, but Bess says they can't just go. They take the group to the control tower and show them the remains of a man named Julius. Nolan explains that Julius became obsessed with the creature, known as the Nocturne Wanderer, after it took his sister. Nolan reads from Julius's diary, and we see the story unfold. In a flashback, young Julius, wearing a yellow hoodie, walks in the woods with his sister, pretending they are on an adventure. Julius doesn't notice when his sister steps into a dark tunnel. She sees something and freezes. Julius hears a terrifying scream and runs away in fear, collapsing and crying. Later, we see Julius as an adult, holding his sister's book. He has become an old man, haunted by the memory of that day. He enters the tunnel, determined to find the creature. Surrounded by candles, he works on building a machine to fight the creature. We see him constructing, sharpening, and firing weapons while looking at a picture of his sister. In the present, the friends talk about Julius's desperate attempts to kill the creature. They believe it acts like a parasite that will keep hunting Queenie. They learn that Julius met his end when his radio attracted the creature. Even though Queenie is worried, the teens decide to stay and finish what Julius started. She reluctantly agrees, and they all hug before getting to work. They test old equipment, create a plan, and work together to prepare the light machine. They set up a trap to lure the Nocturne Wanderer using Queenie's bloodied clothes. The plan starts off well, but Bess struggles with the switch, and Reggie's button doesn't work. Nolan almost gets caught, but is saved by Bess, who distracts the creature. It nearly finds her and Queenie hiding behind a door, but a distant noise draws it away. They manage to lure the creature into a room where Queenie's bloody clothes are placed on a light source. The creature grabs the clothes, and they quickly turn on the light, blinding it. Carl bravely stabs it, giving the girls time to escape. Queenie and Bess make it out of the tunnel safely and breathe a sigh of relief. They look back and see the creature shrieking, but stuck in the darkness of the tunnel. The boys arrive with torches, trapping the creature and setting it on fire. They watch as it burns, screaming in pain. Nolan narrates the ending, revealing that the answer to Joseph's riddle is courage. He explains that courage was the important lesson they learned from their scary adventure, and that even if others don't understand, it will stay with them forever. The story ends with police officers investigating the tunnel. One officer checks the safe rooms with a flashlight. Suddenly, a loud shriek makes him freeze, and his flashlight goes out as he faces something terrifying. Another shriek echoes through the tunnel, hinting at a